To understand Dweck's mindset theory, we have to dive into its psychological genealogy. In 1967, Seligman and Mayer showed that animals exposed to traumatic shocks did little or nothing to prevent future shocks, even if all they had to do was walk across the room. Here you see one control, one alpha, who's given a shock with a means to stop it, and beta, who was not given a chance to escape the shock. In phase 1, alpha could simply cross the room to stop the shock, whereas beta could not escape. In phase 2, all were given the shock and a means to stop it. Only beta did nothing to prevent the shocks, even if all he had to do was to jump to the other side of the room to stop it. This he called learned helplessness. This is common in domestic abuse situations. Caveat: this theory has evolved, and now helplessness apparently is an unlearned response, which is beyond the scope of this presentation. Dweck was intrigued by this phenomenon and connected this to theory of attribution, which stipulates that humans attempt to explain why certain events occur in their lives, which then mold their future reactions. And these attributed factors are labeled as either controllable or uncontrollable. Example: students who explain their failure due to their lack of ability may respond to failure differently from students who attribute their failure from lack of effort, which, as you see in this table, is more controllable. Dweck tried to integrate these theories by demonstrating that students who have very similar abilities for a certain task may show different attributions and reactions to failure. They will either wilt in helplessness or relish the challenge of a setback. In a mastery-oriented approach. But why did this happen? In the 1980s, Dweck proposed the achievement goal theory, stating that students' goals in achievement may be categorized as either performance goals, focusing on validating ability, or learning goals, focusing on developing ability. She then posited that those who focused on proving their ability had a deep-seated fixed attribute of the self, while those who focused on improving their ability had a more dynamic quality that can be developed. She called this implicit theory of intelligence. Hence, the theory of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset was birthed, a belief system. With a growth mindset, challenges are viewed as opportunities to develop abilities where persistence is sustainable, whereas in a fixed mindset, setbacks are perceived as a result of the lack of ability, thus persistence is curtailed. And since as we age, more and more of our learning is top-down in character, perception is key to sustainability. Growth mindset interventions will always involve a brief lecture to its participants on neuroplasticity. But what is neuroplasticity? According to Dr. Campbell, neuroplasticity is the amazing capacity of the brain to change and adapt. It refers to the physiological changes in the brain that happen as a result of our interactions with our environment. This dynamic process allows us to learn from and adapt to different experiences. In mammalian brains, neuroplasticity is mediated by the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. BDNF stimulates neural growth, neurogenesis, and is neuroprotective. Think of it as brain fertilizer. It has been shown in several non-human studies that BDNF levels increase with cognitive challenges, much like the activities that you did earlier. In this picture, you see the mouse Saul in an enriched environment simulating cognitive challenges, resulting in increased BDNF levels. These challenges include wider cage, more tunnels, etc. And since growth mindset interventions praise strategic effort, this in turn raises dopamine levels, your reward hormone, which in turn, you're right, raises BDNF levels. For optimal results, according to Dweck, growth mindset interventions should be concurrently applied to parents, teachers, and peers of participants as well, creating an environment that reinforces this belief system. Part of the intervention also involves a resource speaker, perhaps a school alumna, who succeeded with this mindset, altogether building a well-rounded atmosphere of learning. How does this relate to neuroplasticity? In a longitudinal panel study by Dr. Salinas of Harvard on over 3,000 participants, he concluded that people with greater social support had higher levels of BDNF. Evidence is mounting regarding the interventions of growth mindset theory, particularly in those who can benefit from them most in the fields of math, reading, and science. In a 2011 study of 20 female and male native English undergraduates who underwent electroencephalograph monitoring while simulating a learning task, it was shown that a growth mindset was associated with enhanced error positivity, or PE amplitude, a brain signaling reflecting conscious attention allocation to mistakes and improved subsequent performance. And like any promising social science experiment, it is not free from controversies. In its theoretical framework, the growth mindset theory is sound but lacks robust real-world data. So now, this becomes an ethical issue. Thank you for listening. More on controversies in the next segment.